Doing some problems with sum and difference formulas requires you to break down numbers and put them in terms of a sum or difference so you can use the formulas. So for example, if I looked at cosine negative 15, I can use the fact that this is an even function and write down the cosine of positive 15. One way to do it. And I know that the cosine of positive 15 is the same thing as the cosine of 45 minus 30. I'm breaking 15 down into special right angles so I can then expand and solve for it. Cosine 45 minus 30, I'm going to go and use this identity. So cosine 45 cosine 30 plus sine 45 sine 30. All those are multiplied, and then you add the two. This becomes square root of 2 over 2. I wrote it this way because it'll be easier to simplify when I get to it. And this is square root of 3 over 2 by looking at the table or the unit circle. And the sine of 30 is 1/2. At this point, I can combine it all into one fraction over 4 because they're common denominators. Square root of 6 plus square root of 2. 4. And you would stop at that point. Tangent 15 can also be written as the tangent of 45 minus 30. And this is going to be using this identity. So tangent 45 minus tangent 30 all over 1 minus, oops, that would be a plus, tangent 45, tangent 30. And tangent 45 is 1 by table, and this is 1 over square root of 3, which is the same thing as square root of 3 over 3. I'm just writing that like this to make it a little bit easier when I simplify. 1 plus 1 times square root of 3 over 3. I multiply top and bottom by 3 and distribute. And so this becomes 3 minus square root of 3 over 3 plus square root of 3. Again, you're looking at distributing that negative 3 all the way through. At this point, this is an answer. Technically, you could have a better answer if you multiply by the conjugate of the bottom. So let's just go ahead and do that. 3 plus square root of minus square root of 3 because it's the opposite sign of the plus. And this is going to be 3 minus square root of 3. This is going to get the radical out of the denominator. So in the top, I get 9. And it's going to be minus 3 square roots of 3, minus 3 square roots of 3, and then plus 3. So it's 12 plus 6 square roots of 3. And on the bottom, middle terms will cancel, and you're left with 9 minus 3, which is just 6. Now, this can be broken down into two fractions, so it's 2 plus square root of 3, and you're done. Very quickly, I want to break these down into the starting points. So again, I can write it as 7 pi over 12. And then what I'm going to do is think about numbers with denominator 12 instead of simplified form. So for example, I could have 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12. And that's going to end up with 7 pi over 12. I can plug those into the formula and then expand. Same thing with the cosine of 11 pi over 12. I'm thinking about how can I write it in terms of 12. It looks like 9 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. And again, if you were to if I were to break those down, I would go ahead and see that I would have I would have 3 pi over 4 and pi over 6, and then expand and get your answers. Now, the easier part of these problems is to work from the right side to the left side. Notice that you have sine, cosine, plus cosine, sine. If I were to go back up here and I'm looking for that pattern, it looks like it's sine, cosine, plus cosine, sine. It's the sum of sines. So that just means this is equal to the sine of 20 plus 10 degrees sine of 30, which is equal to 1/2, and you're done. Sum of the tangents and minus 1 over the product. And if you look at that pattern, you're looking at this one right here, which is the sum of tangents. So if I were to go here, looking at the sum of tangents, therefore it's the tangent of pi over 9 plus 5 pi over 36. Doing some fractional work for this is going to be, we'll make 36, so multiplying by 4 over 4 means that this is going to be 9 pi over 36, because when you multiply by 4 over 4, you get 36 on the bottom and 4 on the top. 4 plus 5 is 9. That's the tangent of pi over 4, which is equal to 1. And you're done with that answer. So what you want to do on these problems is break them down so you can do a sum or difference formula using sine, cosine, and tangent. You can either go from left to right as seen in these, or you can go from right to left as seen in numbers 5 and 6.